So the thing that doesn't change is trust. And trust is, look, when I'm sitting across from you on your desk, or if I'm sitting across a Zoom call, then that what I say makes sense to you as a buyer. You can see how you take value in it, and you believe that I probably have your best interest at heart. Yes, I want to sell my product. That's a given, right? But I don't want you to buy it if it's not going to work for you.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing worse than a customer that is upset, is frustrated, it didn't work. I want you to be happy because I need you to network to the other department manager. So if you're in charge of the marketing department, and I can also, and let's just say the product I sell, I can sell to manufacturing, sell to the supply chain division, I can sell the accounting department. If you're in charge of marketing, and that's the first place I get in, and I can convince you to buy my product, well, I want you to tell the other people at the board level, at the company level, I want you to tell them, hey, you should buy that product from Sean. Because that was really cool. That worked really well, right?
Well, welcome back to Whiskey is for Closers. Today's episode is for founders who accidentally became their own VP of sales and are now wondering if AI is here to save them or fire them. Today, we've got Sean O'Shaughnessy, who's the founder of New Sales Expert, in the hot seat. Sean's the guy companies call when they finally admit, okay, our revenue is currently held together with duct tape, hope, and my calendar. And he helps owners turn that chaos into a real sales engine. Actual management, actual process, actual messaging, and now actual smart use of AI instead of just buying shiny tools. We're going to talk about the fun stuff, how to fail spectacularly at B2B sales, how to screw up sales management, and how to abuse AI so badly your prospects never want to talk to you again. Drew, you know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Or maybe we'll just flip that and we'll walk through what it looks like when you get this thing right, when your team, your systems, and your tools are all working together and your company's revenue stops depending on how much coffee you had that day. See how it goes.
Or whiskey.
He's got the bourbon. We've got the mics. The robots are listening. Let's get into it. Sean, welcome.
Thank you very much, Craig. That was a great intro. I need to have you do all my intros from
There we
now on.
go.
That was awesome.
Yes.
He's the
I love
intro
it.
king, man.
I love it. I love it. Well, guys, this obviously is the most important part of the podcast. What are we drinking today? Who wants to go
think our
first?
guest- let's let our guest go first.
He's
Love
going
that.
to show us all up. Do we want him to go last or first?
I think he should go first.
Okay, that's good. Sean,
Okay,
you
so
go.
I actually, I figured that this is like an hour long, right? So I figure I'm going to need two
Ish.
bourbons in order to get through
For
it.
sure.
So my first one, let's just talk about my first one, then I'll talk about my second. So my first one, several months ago, when it was warm out, before all this damn snow on the ground, sorry, you can edit that part out, before all this snow on the ground, I invited Craig, Steve, and Drew to my house. Drew had a family thing and he couldn't make it. Right. So that's cool. We're not going to penalize you for that. It's okay. It's just fine. But Steve and Craig came to my house. We had steaks. We talked business. We talked life. It was fantastic. But as part of that, I had already introduced Steve to a really good friend of mine. His name is Todd Wilkowski. Todd is a fractional lawyer here in Greater Cincinnati. And Todd showed up at my house later on that afternoon, and he brought a bottle of bourbon. And it's a Woodford Reserve. I don't know. This is live, so maybe you can see this.
It's almost
Woodford
gone,
Reserve,
Sean.
private
Almost finished
label,
it.
Frost Brown Todd, which is his firm. And I'll read the tasting notes if you don't mind. I'm going to read the tasting notes. On the back
Please.
here.
So we do this.
So the tasting notes: aroma, rich, smoky oak, chocolate, and caramel notes, brightened with a hint of citrus and spice. The flavor is maple syrup, chocolate, caramel, and malt, with the fruit medley of spiced apple, dark cherry, and bright citrus. And the finish is long and rich. So that's what I'm going to be drinking for my first one. For my second one, I got to do something different. For my second one, I'm just going to do good old-fashioned Eagle Rare.
Eagle
Yeah,
Rare. That's a
nice.
solid choice.
That's
right.
one of Drew's faves for sure.
Yeah, that's right. It's funny when you describe the tasting notes like that. I remember reading something like that to my wife, and she said, "That sounds like candy. I'm going to love that." And then I gave it to her, and she's like, "That's not candy at all."
That's so awesome. Oh, that's so good. That was great, Sean. That was
Thank you.
great. I'll go next because it'll be so bad that it'll transition to the other guys. So I made a decision. I was at the end of one of my bottles. And so we're saying goodbye today to Buffalo Trace. This is my last pour from this bottle. We'll have to get another one. So
That's a good bourbon.
that's mine today.
Yeah.
That's a good bourbon.
That's a good, solid everyday
I've
bourbon.
used it
Yeah.
a bunch of times on
Yeah,
Whiskey
but
is for Closers.
you know, it's made side by side with my Eagle Rare, just in a different place.
Absolutely.
All right, Drew, you go, man.
Yeah, let's go. By the way, as you were reading that, and Steve, you were telling me the story of sharing that with your wife, immediately I thought of Elf and saying you sit on a throne of lies, okay? Because it doesn't taste like any. And let's set the record straight real quick, because I read the note flavoring on one of these, and Craig shamed me and said, "You sound like an idiot, Drew." And I was like, okay,
That is not
I
what
now have
said.
to change my name to King Snake. So now it's a whole new alias and everything. So here we are. So today I brought out the good shit, guys, because Sean, you deserve this. Not that anybody else doesn't, but there's a connection here. And so because of that, I opened up a bottle of Blanton's for the good stuff today. So I am about 7 or 8 drinks in already, sips in, I should say.
Ooh,
And I'm feeling
Dang
King Snaky,
drink.
That's-
King Snaky. So let's rock and roll and talk AI, baby.
What's the letter? I want to know what the letter is. So if you're going to
It's
drink
A.
A, okay, very cool.
Mhm.
Let me see. Do I need A? No, I don't need A. So thanks.
Fine, I'll get to keep this one.
that's awesome. And you know what, Drew? I think it's very, very fitting that you picked Blanton's. And I was thinking, and I was kind of on the same wavelength as you, because I was like, hey, this is Sean. Sean's a special guy. I got to pull out one that I haven't cracked the seal on yet. And guess what it was? Blanton's.
Let's
Blanton's.
go.
So I got Blanton's right here as well, man. Just cracked the bottle. So Sean, hey, in your honor.
Dude,
Thank you
let's
very
go.
much.
Early
Cheers.
cheers,
Cheers.
people. I'm loving
Cheers.
this. Woo, I can taste the notes in that,
Well,
guys.
And we found out that Drew and I had no idea. Steve and Sean apparently had been hiding this from us. Sean has like a first edition Whiskey is for Closers shot glass, which is
Right.
amazing.
Show us, Sean.
You see
Awesome.
it?
Yeah.
Yeah, look at that. He's got one that was before the branding was
Before
added.
the
That's
branding.
a vintage.
Nice.
That's
Before the
vintage.
podcast.
Yeah, that's
I
right.
love that.
Steve sent that to me. I don't know. It's been a couple of years now that you sent that to me. A year and a half ago
Yeah.
or so.
Yeah.
That's so great.
That's how special you are, Sean.
I appreciate it.
Well,
man.
Sean, we want to start off with the hardest hitting questions, right? Like, why do you
Always.
think that salespeople and bourbon just seem to naturally find each other? Or do you trust AI enough to pour bourbon for you? Or are we not quite there yet? Thoughts?
Wow. So why do salespeople in bourbon go? So
Naturally find each other.
yeah. So let's talk about how you make bourbon, right? So bourbon, it's controlled. You got to have the same basic recipe for the beginnings of bourbon, right? You have to have so much corn. You have to be able to brew it in a certain kind of conditions, right? Some people say you have to brew it in, or you have to distill it in Kentucky. That's not true, but that's okay. But there's rules on how that works. But then there's variations after the fact, right?
Mm.
And that's what great salespeople are all about, right? We follow a process, we follow a recipe, we do it the same way over and over, but we put our individual tastes and spin on the entire thing. And that's how good bourbon is, and that's how good salespeople are, right? Good salespeople follow a process, they make sure they do it the same way all the time once it's working, but then they adapt for that individual sales situation. How's that?
Good.
My
That's
God,
brilliant.
I'm taking a
This
drink
guy's-
on
this guy's
it.
done
I'm going
this
to drink to
before.
that.
Right?
that's-
That was awesome. So do you trust AI to pour your bourbon for you?
I've
or are we
never
not there yet?
had a robot or AI pour my bourbon. I have had a robot pour my glass of wine before,
How'd that
but
go?
I've never had a robot pour my bourbon. So I don't know if I would trust that. I'm pretty particular in how my bourbon gets poured, so I don't know if I would trust that.
I've had a robot bring a margarita to my table before. That was pretty cool.
We were
There
with
you
you,
go.
Steve.
Yeah,
I've had a
that's
robot.
right.
I've had a robot bring food to my table. Yeah, I've done
Yeah.
that before.
So Sean, just to kind of like level set really quick, 60 seconds. What is New Sales Expert? Why did you start it?
So I started my company because I came from corporate America, big companies. We can talk about some of that if we want to on the podcast. But as I was transitioning out, I was thinking about what kind of company I was going to do and what I was going to offer. And I realized that there are thousands of companies that are small that can't afford somebody with 35, 40 years of experience in sales and sales management. And because of that, they tend to be stuck and they can't figure out why they can't grow. They think they have a great product. They probably do have a decent product, but they get stuck and they tend to get stuck at plateaus, right? They'll get to a certain point and they're like, how do I get 20% bigger? I can't figure out what I'm doing wrong. They'll make a run at it and then they'll pull back because they didn't do it very well. Or they've gone out, they've tried to hire a salesperson and it's like, why can't I hire a good salesperson? Why can't I do this? So I've come to the conclusion that even though I thought sales was relatively easy because I started it when I was a young kid, younger than Drew, but I literally realized that sales is hard. It's really, really hard, especially for company founders who weren't in sales before. So that's why I started my company, because there's lots of companies out there that need help growing to the next level. And I get jazzed by just having people be successful, grow their company, employ more people in their communities, make careers for everybody, make a long-lasting impression, be able to pass it off to their children or whoever, their heirs at the end of their lifetimes. I just think that's just a fantastic whole process. And I love helping companies pull that off.
Amen,
You know,
brother.
whenever, so if this is your first time hearing Sean talk, you can already start to kind of pick up that there is rich history that comes out in the things he says. He's not reading AI teleprompters in front of him. He's actually sharing. And that was probably the one thing, Sean, when you and I first connected, and I started to get to know you, I was like, man, there's like two people this has happened to me with. It's you and Steve. When you guys talk, like you sit there and you're like, man, there's just a lot of depth and there's a lot of knowledge. There's a lot of experiences. There's everything that ranges from good to bad and everything in between. So I want you to take us back, okay, Sean? And I want you to talk us and frame this within like your first real sales job, okay? So probably post-college, what did you learn the hard way? Because those hard lessons is really what starts to kind of prep you and set you up for some of those good years, right? We learn from all of that. So bring us back to those first hard lessons that you had to learn.
So the very first hard lesson, man, you really bring it back. So this is early or mid 80s, right? So earlier in my career, mid 80s. First hard lesson I learned, I got to my first assignment. I was working for a company called Allen Bradley, which is now called Rockwell Automation. They transferred me here to Cincinnati, Ohio. And a couple months into my getting used to the office and being the newest guy in the office, one of the senior sales guys said, by the way, Sean, someday Ken was my boss at the time, is going to want to make a joint sales call with you. Not yet. He hasn't done that because you're still trying to figure out the ropes and figure out what the bathroom is and all that other stuff, right? But he's going to make a joint sales call with one of your clients. You need to know how you're going to drive to that client or to that customer. And I was like, well, of course I'm going to know how to drive there. And he goes, no. You need to know the path. You need to know every company that you're going to drive by before you get to that customer. Because Ken Houck, by the way, I believe is still alive. He was alive a couple of months ago when I ran into him. But so he's very old. He's probably not listening to podcasts. But they said, Ken will ask you as you drive by one of the companies that's in your territory, what do they do and what do we do for them? So that very first tough lesson, and he did, right? So like 3 weeks later, I'm on my first meeting and I remember this and I take him as best route that I can where I know at least the most amount of those. And he found the one that I hadn't been to yet, right? And he goes, hey, Sean, what do they do? It's almost like he was reading all of my notes of all the call notes that I'd given him over the last several weeks, right? So, which obviously he had, right? So he probably knew that he doesn't know who that is. And that was a lesson in humility that was right away. And that was know your client base, know your customers, know what's going on. Because he's like, what do they do there? Not what do we sell them? What do they buy from us? All that other stuff. What do they do there? How do they make money? How do they make their products? It was manufacturing. How do they make their products? Right. So that lesson of, first of all, know your territory, right? That's really important, right? Know your territory, know what you're responsible for. Now, as a young kid, I just hadn't got there yet. But also know the company, know what's going on in the company, know how they make money. And as I got older in my career, I learned know how they lose money. Because as I got older and I got to call on CFOs and CEOs of those companies I was selling to, I found out that CFOs don't care how you make money. CFOs care how you lose money. They care how they lose money more than they care about how they win money. They can't lose money. CFOs are trained. You will not lose money because they take the company's cash and they stick it into CDs and bonds and whatever while they're waiting to pay bills and doing that cash flow thing. They are not allowed to lose money. They lose money, they lose their job. So that whole mindset, when you're talking to a CFO of you need to make sure that you know how to make money and how to lose money, and you need to avoid the losing money part of it. And that was that very first lesson of when I was just a young kid going out there making sales calls. Know your customer, know what's going on, know how they make money.
Okay. And that is so fascinating because you're talking over, you're talking what, 30, 40 years ago.
40 years ago.
That lesson popped right up to you, right? Surfaced immediately. And my guess is that's probably as you're training and going through with some salespeople that you're developing and training, that's probably one of the first things you start to help them realize, recognize, and understand.
Yeah. When I walk into one of my clients and there's some existing salespeople at those clients. So some of my clients don't have any salespeople, in which case I call you guys and I say, hey, come help me. But if they have salespeople, I got to make those salespeople better, right? So when we start talking about a client, we talk about a deal, I just start asking them questions. And one of the first questions I ask, not the first, but one of the first is, tell me how they lose money. And the salespeople always give me a dumb look, like, because they don't know, right? Like they really don't know how they make money. So they make something up and I go, really? Let's talk about that, right? And I always go back to your grocery store because everybody can relate to a grocery store. Right? You've all walked into a grocery store. How does the manager of a grocery store, who you assume has got some kind of P&L responsibility for that location, right? How do they lose money?
As a grocery
store. How does a grocery store lose money?
Don't protect their margins.
Close.
Poor purchasing.
Close.
Losing, like customers don't want to show up.
Yeah, no customers.
No, actually, they don't make money because they don't manage their physical infrastructure costs. That's how they lose money. They're gonna make money selling Tide and Cheerios and milk, right? They're gonna mark that up the appropriate amount, competitive to the industry. They're gonna make 3, 4, 10% on whatever they did, right? They're gonna mark all that up. They lose money when their costs of running the store are too high, right? When their infrastructure costs get too high. Because they live on very small margins, but that's when they're going to lose money. So next time you walk into a grocery store, think about it. Like they've got 12 to 14,000 products in that store, different SKUs in that store, right? They walk in the grocery store and you look around and you go, how many people are wearing the whatever it is? If it's Kroger, if it's a Thriftway, whatever the brand is, I don't really care. You walk in and go, how many of those people are running around? Well, they need more people. They need to clean this up. No, they can't afford it because controlling your costs is the most important thing when you're running a grocery store. So when you're calling on a grocery store, and I live in Cincinnati, Ohio, so there's a big grocery store chain here in Cincinnati, Ohio, Kroger. When you're calling on a grocery store and you're talking to the CFO, well, you have to understand that he is more worried about his costs of his capital equipment and all of that stuff than he is on what he buys the product for and what he sells the product for.
Yeah.
He's going to pull that off. That's going to be fine, right? It's how much he controls the costs. So they teach their managers how to run the store efficiently. Same thing goes for any other company that you talk to. What the CFO cares about is losing money. Where do things get out of control? And you can figure that out by reading the annual report. If it's a public company, you can read the annual report. You can figure out that what they really worry about is their infrastructure costs. If you go to any grocery store chain, you read their annual report, you're going to find out they talk all about infrastructure costs all over their annual report. So I use that as an example just because it's easy one because everybody walks into a grocery store at least once in their life. But the whole point of this is what I ask that question and people give me that dumb look and they go, I have no idea how that company loses money. Right. But but there's a way. You got to figure it out.
Yeah.
That's good. That makes me very much aware. Now I understand why when I go, there's an Ingles not
Yeah.
far from us. You know Ingles?
Yeah.
So Ingles in this part of the country, in rural areas, that was all that was there. But now Kroger's here, Publix is here. And then there's this Ingles store that's been here forever. And when you go into that Ingles store, I go into it once in a while when I need to get something that's just like quick, because there's like 3 people working
Right.
in the store. It's this giant grocery store and there's 3 people there. It's like, well, clearly they don't have many people working because they don't have many people shopping.
That's right. That's exactly
So,
right. 'Cause they got to
yeah.
control their costs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so that framing is like, okay, it's like we're talking about sales, but we're talking about something bigger as you were starting to kind of unpack that. And as you were starting to kind of tease the thread out, it's like, okay, we're moving past the sales now. And we're starting to understand, how do businesses work? How do they function? If we can understand how businesses work and how they function, then we can start to get it myopic down to the sales portion, right?
That's
So-
exactly right.
So my question is this. Okay, you just realize I'm pretty darn good at sales, but pulling back to that, like understanding who my competitors are, understanding what makes me lose money, that's something bigger than sales. So when did you start to realize and actually understand that, hey, I'm not just good at sales. Now I understand how to lead, build sales systems, how to create strategy. Like, when did you start to learn that and figure that out along that process?
Wow, that's a really tough one. I don't know that I've ever been asked that question. So I appreciate you challenging me here. And I've already had 3 drinks of my glass of bourbon. So now it's going to be really tough to
So
pick
now
it
you
up.
can just
Loosen 'em up.
freestyle, Sean. Just freestyle.
Drew's
No one's
had
gonna
like
know.
10 still.
It doesn't even have to be true, Sean. Just say it.
No,
That's
it's
right.
got to be
That's what
true.
I
It's
mean.
got to be true. So I started to get a little bit when I was my first manager job, right? So it was my second employer in my career. First time I was a manager, I got promoted. They took the best salesperson. They said, well, you're the best sales guy. We're going to make you a manager, right? So typical screwed up philosophy on how to promote for a manager. Anyway, so I didn't have any idea how to be a manager. I didn't know any idea how to do that. So now I'm a manager, and we shit the bed. Excuse my language, man. You're going to have to do a
You're
lot of
fine.
editing,
It's
Greg.
explicit.
It's
So
okay,
We're
man.
good.
We got
We-
the explicit rating.
Yeah.
so
Steve has
we-
a potty
we-
mouth. We have to do it every week. It's all good.
So we did a really bad job. My team did a really bad job, whatever it was, Q2, right? And we just didn't do well. And now it's time to do my forecast for Q3. And I do my forecast and I'm like, I am not going to do that again. I am not going to miss my number again. So I sandbag, right? I take every deal and I divide it by 2 or whatever, right? I sandbag, right? So I give my boss, and I'm not working for a very big company. This is a young company. There's 110 employees in the company. So we're not big. We're not that strong. And so I give him my forecast. I give my president the forecast of the company. Unbeknownst to me, the same thing happened to the other regional managers across the country, and also the UK manager. He also, because we all did poorly and we got beat up appropriately. We got beat up because we had a bad Q2. So I do the honest reaction. I sandbag. I am not going to miss my forecast again, right? So Q3 undershoot it, right? And then I get the phone call. We're laying off 4 people. Now, 110 people, you lay off 4 people, 4% layoff. That's significant by that. But the killer is they were 4 people I knew. At the 110 people, everybody in the company. And so 4 people that I knew lost their jobs. And I went to my president. I go, why did you do that? These are good people. Yeah, that one guy wasn't so good, but the other 3 were great, right? They were really good. They were helping. And he goes, you guys, everybody had a really low forecast. We had a bad Q2 and now you're forecasting a bad Q3. And I go, oh. So that's when I started realizing, wait a second, I'm not a sales guy anymore. I'm a business person.
Yep.
Now you want to know the really bad part? I blew my number away in Q3. And so did everybody else. We had a record Q3. Right?
So
we
those people
all
could have kept their
sandbagged.
jobs. Yeah.
And we all brought in all the deals that slipped in Q2 into Q3. We brought those in. We brought in more deals. We had the best Q3 of like 3 years. Those 4 people did not need to lose their jobs. We had plenty of cash.
Yeah.
Those 4 people did not need to lose their jobs. forecast accuracy, it was a painful lesson. Forecast accuracy is so, so important, right? Can you do it right? Can you actually forecast correctly? So important.
That's
And
a
that's when I
crazy
started to
story,
realize
Sean.
I'm a manager. I'm a business person. I'm no longer a salesperson. I'm a business person
That's right.
Wow.
because what I do
Absolutely.
affects other people's job.
Yeah. Well, and that kind of comes back to, you were, Mr. Kingsnake, you were asking him, when did he realize that he wasn't just good in sales? All of what he just talked about is sales, right? It was more like there's selling, right? Selling, closing, and then there's sales. And that's the thing that makes sales so complex, Sean, is that it is so hooked into all these other aspects of the business. It really is a much bigger deal than people realize. And so that sounds like your aha moment came there, right?
Yeah, that's when I realized that it was more than just how fast can I sell the product. It was running a business. It was and that's when I figured out I had to get good at running a business. Right. So that's when I started paying attention to what are our tools that we're using, how are we doing our job, how are we doing our process. And then I went to a company that just was excellent at everything. So I left that company after like 4 or 5 years, went to another company. So this is my third employer, and they were excellent at almost everything. And they were driven. Their stock price was going up like crazy. They were high growth, and they were excellent at everything. And they had quotas for everything. They knew this is how we are successful, and they duplicated it over and over and over again. And that's when I was like, wow, systems matter, processes matter, the way we do it matters.
Yeah.
And that's when I started to realize that all of this comes together with running a good business is all that process matters. So that's when I started really focusing on how do we do sales? How do we do it effectively?
Well, and that makes for a really good segue to something that I want to come back to. And when you got the form that we sent out before the podcast, there's a question we ask in there to kind of prepare for this conversation. And we asked this question: hey, what's one thing we could ask you that would allow you to kind of share some kind of perspective on yourself that people who don't know you need to know, right? So there's people listening who know Sean. They're not surprised to hear this, but people who don't know you, what's that one question? And one of the things you teased out in that was how to fail at B2B sales and sales leadership. And so I feel like you're kind of teeing that up with all the things you're talking about. So let's go there, man. So how do you fail at B2B sales and B2B sales management?
Yeah. So when you fail at B2B sales when you don't realize that B2B sales is not about the transaction. So some companies are that way, right? They're going to sell one thing to that customer and never sell anything else to that customer ever again, right? But that's typically not B2B sales. That is B2C sales. And let's face it, there are those companies out there that's what they sell. So the more you understand that you are going to sell to that same company over and over again, right? That you're going to, as you sell to a company, you're probably going to sell at a department or divisional level. Now you're going to sell at a a subdivision. You're going to sell at one part of the company, not the other part of the company, one department of the company, not the other one, but you want to get all of the company. You want to be an enterprise sale organization, right? But you're probably not going to get that on day one, right? The first transaction is probably not that way. So in B2B sales, it is actually about the follow through, not the first deal. And so there's a really old adage, and all of you can relate to this, and almost our listeners probably can relate to this. That how do you know when a salesperson is lying? The lips are moving.
The mouth is moving,
right?
Sadly.
We get called liars all the time because we get
True.
made synonymous with car salespeople, right? But the reality is B2B salespeople don't lie, right? So it's when you try to deceive as a B2B salesperson, you're going to fail.
Yeah.
You need to be as honest as the day is long.
So good.
Because your integrity is all that you got. Because you're selling trust.
Yeah.
Right? You're selling trust. Okay, Mr. Customer or Mr. Prospect, do you trust me? Oh, you don't trust me. Well, then I am work to do. But once you do trust me, well, then I got to get you to trust my product. And I got to get you to trust the company behind the product, right? That all of us are going to deliver when we say, because for our customers, it's not unusual for it to be a career limiting decision if they screw it up, especially as it gets bigger and bigger, right?
Yeah.
So they have they have to really understand this is a good product, this is a good company, and I trust the salesperson that's delivering it to me. So if you want to fail at B2B sales, think of it as a transaction that you're never going to see that person again.
Yeah, that's really good, man. And what you were touching on there at the end was I think there is the phenomenon of selling and being honest in a B2B context with a big brand that everybody recognizes, right? And then there's the scrappy startup, emerging growth company that's trying to somehow eat into the market of the more established players. They absolutely have to establish trust because, like you said, the purchaser, the line is no one ever got fired for hiring Microsoft. You know
Right.
that line, right?
Yeah.
And so when you are not Microsoft, you even more, the trust piece is so important because you're not even going to get to the conversation about how you can help somebody if you can't build the trust when you're not Microsoft. And you
Right.
should still do it as Microsoft, but they get a little bit of a pass because they've got such a huge brand. Drew is early on, Drew was kind of circling around this whole reality that you and I, Sean, are older guys. Did you notice that? How he was talking about, you've been doing this for so long.
Experience.
Wonderfully
And
Yeah,
Steve,
yeah.
I have to say it, Steve, I'm older than you are, right?
Yes. So I'm gonna be the one with respect to ask you a question that has to do with our age, which is you've been doing sales for a long time. You and I both were doing sales way before technology.
Oh, yeah.
So I remember when there was this thing that showed up called a fax machine, and I thought that was pretty amazing. It's like, that's so cool. I don't have to get in my car to go deliver
phone in
a
a bag,
contract.
Steve.
Yeah, I had the phone in the bag.
I have a fax machine story to tell you, but keep going. Go with the question.
So you and I were both selling pre-technology. We went through the dot-com boom and this explosion of technology, and now AI, right? Now we're seeing AI. What, in your view, has not changed about how we sell the right way, despite all the changes? And everybody talks about all the change of technology and AI. What has not changed?
So what hasn't changed in that whole thing, and won't change in the near future at least, and probably forever, is people do need to trust, right? So I'm going to go back to this kind of the same answer I kind of gave Drew, right? But people need to trust because it is their career. Maybe not for the departmental, the small division transaction, that first transaction, but if you're in B2B sales, you make money by selling enterprise level deals. That's how you really make money. If you want to say, look, I want a vacation in Bora Bora. I want to because I was almost going to say I want a vacation in France, but Steve, I know you don't like France. So I want a vacation in Germany, right? I want to take my wife to my spouse to Germany. I want to go to Bora Bora. I want to go to Hawaii, right? If you wanted to have that life as a B2B salesperson, which we all know that's the life of a B2B salesperson to have that desire, then you need to do enterprise level deals. And enterprise level deals means all of your customer uses your product if they can, right? As much as that customer, they use your product. So the thing that doesn't change is trust. And trust is, look, when I'm sitting across from you on your desk, or if I'm sitting across a Zoom call, then that what I say can make sense to you as a buyer. You can see how you take value in it, and you believe that I probably have your best interest at heart. Yes, I want to sell my product. That's a given, right? But I don't want you to buy it if it's not going to work for you.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing worse than a customer that is upset, is frustrated, it didn't work. I want you to be happy because I need you to network to the other department manager. So if you're in charge of the marketing department, and I can also, and let's just say the product I sell, I can sell to manufacturing, sell to the supply chain division, I can sell the accounting department. If you're in charge of marketing, and that's the first place I get in, and I can convince you to buy my product, well, I want you to tell the other people at the board level, at the company level, I want you to tell them, hey, you should buy that product from Sean. Because that was really cool. That worked really well. Right. And so that level of trust is incredibly important. And it's what we really sell, because all we really sell as B2B salesperson, actually, all we really sell as salespeople is trust. That when I say this is going to be a good product, you trust me. I don't even care if it's a car. I don't care if it's a TV that you buy from Best Buy. Right. This is going to be a great product. You're going to love it. And you trust that I'm not just selling you. I'm actually have your best interest at heart. And the more likely you are, to do that, the better off you're going to be in sales.
And I don't believe that there's any robot or any AI tool that will ever be able to do that, because we are created by a creator,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And God gave us this innate ability to be able to discern someone's intent.
Right.
Like, it's a very subtle, almost subconscious thing that we can do, but we know sitting in front, even if it's on a computer screen and I'm looking at you, Sean, on a computer screen, and you're talking to me, I can tell whether I can trust you or not.
Yeah, exactly.
And if I'm just dealing with a robot, I mean, they
Right.
could say anything, and there's
Right.
nothing there for me to be able to use this God-given discernment or to say, can I trust that or not? So I think you're absolutely right, man.
Right.
I really do.
And yeah, there are some products that we all buy. I mean, we
Widgets.
all have an Amazon account, right?
Yeah,
So we all
widgets.
buy
Those are
from Amazon.
widgets. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. If I'm going to buy a book, I'm going to buy a book on Amazon.
Yeah, for sure.
If I'm going to buy refills for toilet paper, I'm probably going to buy that on something that I can just buy it, right? I want to know how big it is, how many it is. I'm going to do some price analysis. Done. Bought it, right?
But way
That's
different than B2B sales,
that's
though, right?
different than
Yeah,
B2B
so
sales.
different. So
Yeah.
tell us the fax machine story, man.
Fax machine story. So I'm still in college at this point, and I'm not a great student, and that shouldn't surprise any of the three of you, because you all
Me
know me
either.
for a little bit.
I
So I'm
sucked.
not a
terrible.
great student.
Classic C guy.
Yeah. Well, D stood for diploma for me. So and so my professor, I'm a mechanical engineer. I graduated in 4 years from a really, really, really good school. So I'm not dumb. Don't get me wrong. I just not a great student. I don't love being smart. So I made the decision early in my career, or as I was in college, that I was going to go into sales, technical sales. That was what it was called back in the day, was technical sales. So I signed up for every interview that was going to be in technical sales. So one of the companies I was interviewing with was a company called Timken. You may know the company. They make ball bearings and other specialty metal kind of products, right? They're based in Canton, Ohio, not very far from the Football Hall of Fame. So they want to interview me in a unique way. They wanted me to go to one of their sales offices to talk to the leader of that sales office. That was going to be the final interview in the process. So I flew to Peoria, Illinois. So if some of you have been to Peoria, Illinois, maybe there's
Nope.
people on this podcast that have listened to Peoria that are living in Peoria, Illinois. So I flew to the office in Peoria, Illinois, and I'm having a great conversation. I'm meeting all the other salespeople. I'm talking to the district manager. He's like, "Oh, you got to see this new tool that we have." I go, "What is it?" "Yeah, this is," he goes, he drags me in. He takes me over to this thing that looks like a copier. I've seen copiers because, copiers were things that we saw in our offices back then. That was a real thing. So he takes me to this copier. He goes, "We can get this over the phone. It's hooked up to the phone, and somebody can put a piece of paper in a long way away, like thousands of miles away, and they can put it in there, and they can send us an image, and it'll print out." So he goes, "Let me show you. He calls up his buddy in another office, "Fax me," whatever. And the guy faxes him over, and out comes this piece of paper, and it's curled up because it's that heated.
Yeah, the thermal paper.
It's curled up. And I look at it, and I'm like, "Oh my God, this is amazing that you can actually send a piece of paper over." And this was like 1,000 miles away, right? So that was my fax story. And I was like amazed. And I almost went to work for this specialty metal company because they had fax machines. And then I went to my first job because I didn't accept the offer. I went to my first job, and they didn't have a fax machine anywhere in our department. I go, "I thought all these good companies had fax machines," but I didn't call it a fax machine. I called it a facsimile machine. So
Oh, that's
Of
right.
course.
That's right. Yeah.
Of course.
right. So I saw the beginning of the fax thing where I didn't understand it. It was lousy. It was really hard to read.
Terrible.
Right? It was lousy,
Yeah.
right? Right.
Yeah.
So I saw the beginning and I saw the end of the fax machine era too. So I lived my entire life with that whole technology puff.
So
Sean.
good.
That is fantastic.
Says
I
the
mean,
young.
well, and it's fascinating because
I remember when I got my first page, my mom wouldn't page me.
I remember when I got my first pager.
I'm a pager guy. I can respect feeling outdated in that sense. Absolutely. My God, that is amazing. I do actually remember fax machines, and I actually remember where it was when I first saw it, and I was like, how does this thing work? Like, how are they, like, what is happening?
Where
the
did
bad
you
thing is,
see it for the first time? Like on a South Park episode that was making fun of it?
No, it actually wasn't. It was actually at my dad's church. I remember I walked in and I heard this thing going, tick, 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 and it was like, it was doing its humming. And I'm like, what the hell is that noise that's going on? And then somebody's like, oh no, that's the fax machine. I was like, I don't even know what that word means. So like, I just walk in and something just starts printing out. And I was like, what is this thing? And they're like, well, somebody sent us a message. I'm like, how are they doing that? Is this black magic? Like, what is going on here? So I do remember as a kid, like hearing about those things and going, this makes no sense to me, but man, is this freaking cool. I love it. That is awesome.
Thanks for
All right.
taking us back there, Drew.
Yeah, I feel like I'm in a lose-lose situation here. So I'm just going to take another drink and we'll see where it ends up going. All right. So Sean, here's a question for you. Okay. You are having a Zoom call with a potential client and you are talking to a company as new sales expert. Where are you starting with that company? Like, are you starting with management? Are you starting with methodology? Are you starting with a process, with the team, with the messaging? Like, where do you begin when it comes to trying to like understand where do we start? How do we deliver? What is it we're doing here? Like, so talk to us through kind of that process that you go through.
so I'm gonna assume that I've never met this customer before. I mean, I got to play act a little bit here to pull this off, right? But so the first thing I do is I usually start with, tell us why. Tell me why your company exists. Tell me why you created the company. Why did you start the company? Tell me your origin story. It's the Marvel movie, like I need to know why Professor X is like he is, right? So, or whatever. I'm going to screw that up. So, right. So tell me the origin story of your company, because the origin story tells me a lot about who they are as a company, and especially if I'm talking to the founder. And part of that is, it's the old Dale Carnegie thing. I want them to talk more than I talk. I want them to like me. So therefore I'm going to ask them questions. This is a standard Dale Carnegie trick. Yeah. And by the way, if those people that haven't read Dale Carnegie, they need to read how to win friends and influence people, I think is the name of the title of the book, right? It's a great book. It's 100 years old. Go read the book. So, and Craig's looking for the book on his bookcase.
I absolutely am.
So that's cool. But so here's the issues, right? Like, tell me about your company. Tell me about your baby. Tell me about what's going on, right? And before long, I get the origin story. I try to build it out. And then I'm trying to figure out, well, what are you doing wrong? Because you're not talking to me unless there's something that's not going well. You have to be doing things, I don't want to say wrong. That's too hard of a word. Not correct. Right. And so I'm trying to get to the point where I'm figuring that out. I'm trying to get to a point where I'm trying to figure out, what are you doing that's not working? It's not uncommon for them to ask me a question, and it's not the root cause of the problem. Mm-hmm. My most common question that I get from a founder is, can you help me write a comp plan that will motivate my salespeople? That's the most common question I get. Now, yes, I can, right? I usually ask like 10 more questions after that, though, and I find out that that's not the reason that they're not selling, right? Yes, their comp plan may be bad. That happens all the time. Writing a comp plan, by the way, is really, really hard to do. Writing a good comp plan is hard to do.
Yep.
You know that, right, Steve?
I do. Hard. Oh my gosh. Yeah, it is. And then things change, and then you got to do it again, a lot of times.
Exactly. Yeah. But what I really want to do is I want to find out, where are their weaknesses? Where are they struggling? And I usually find that their salespeople are not asking good questions. They're not asking good open-ended questions. They're not understanding the customer. And so they're basically just pitching. They get a customer on the line and they pitch. That's usually what I get to, but I got to get them to a point that's where we're at. And I start with the origin story of their company. Why did you start this company? And why are you there? And then we talk through it. And it's really cool, because a lot of times the founder will say, and I grew this from 0 to 10 million. And I go, cool, that's great. Because let's be honest, that's amazing, right? Going to 10 million, That is an amazing journey. You did a fantastic job. Most people can't do that. You did a lot of things right in order to do it. And then I find out that, but then I started hiring people to be in sales and they just flounder. They can't pull it off. And I go, okay, that's cool. That's cool. So you were the salesperson, Mr. Founder, for a long time. Yeah, I was the guy who got us to $10 million. And then I go, do you know how hard it is to impart trust as the CEO, the president of the company? And Drew, you are the salesperson for Alteza. And Steve, you're the founder.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to tell me if you think I'm wrong here on this. It's much easier for Steve to say, Mr. Prospect, I want you to trust me that we are going to make your company successful when we place a fractional salesperson into your company. I will make sure that my team delivers. You can say that, Steve, right?
Yep.
Drew,
Absolutely.
you can't say that, right? You can say, I will yell and scream at Steve to make sure that happens. I will yell and scream at Craig to make sure that happens. But you can't say, I will make sure that we are successful at helping you. And I tell that to the founder, especially if they don't have any salespeople, or if they've struggled with salespeople, hiring salespeople. And I say, that's the problem. You didn't teach the salesperson how to sell differently than what you sell. You taught the salesperson to sell exactly how you sell.
Yep.
And that's the big problem. And that's the reason why most founders struggle with those first 4 or 5 salespeople. That's part of the reason why I have done so many opportunities with you guys, with Alteza, right? Because they need to learn, they need great salespeople, and hiring your first salesperson is really hard. So when you're hiring your first salespeople, and you guys are going to get this because you know this pitch over and over and over again, but you're hiring your first salesperson as a founder or your second salesperson, and you're talking to a salesperson and he's unemployed. Oh, first red mark, don't hire unemployed salespeople. Because if they're any good, they're employed. They could get laid off. There's lots of reasons why that. So if they've been unemployed though for more than 3 or 4 months, that's a problem. That's a red flag, right? So you hired an unemployed salesperson that's been out of work for the last 6 months, or you hired somebody who's never been in sales, but they talk really well. So we're going to hire them. Well, guess what? That's not going to work most likely, right? Yeah. So then you get to the situation where you're talking to them and you find out that that's who they hired and that's why it wasn't successful. It's like, well, that was your mistake. Don't do that anymore. And I'm going to set up a system that you're not going to hire bad salespeople anymore, right? So it's not about a compensation plan. It's about, you don't have a process to teach a salesperson how to be successful that's not the CEO, because you can't say, look, trust me, this is going to work and I will make sure my company delivers. It has no value.
Yeah, no, that's so good. I know I see this happen all the time where the founder brings in the first sale. This is the 0 to 1 problem, right?
Yep.
And Sean, you and I have talked about this a bunch on your podcast too. So
exactly.
The common thing I see with the 0 to 1 thing is, hey, I've got all these recordings. I got these Zoom recordings over here. Could just go watch those and then just do what I do. Drew, I may have even done that a little bit, right? Maybe a little. I don't know. I might have done that.
You've not done that to me. No.
Okay, good. I'm glad to hear that. So what, Sean, that you've already touched on it, like I think, but I really want you to drive this point home. Yeah. Before I, as the founder, bring in the first salesperson, what is absolutely a non-negotiable in terms of what I have to have in place before I do it?
You have to have, well, first of all, you have to really understand who your customer is, right? You have to understand what your value proposition is to that customer. You have to understand how are we going to take that customer through the process of selling to them? Now, we can do that as a journey. We don't have to get that figured out all at the same time, right? But more than anything else, you have to understand that I can say to the customer, the prospect, that this is what we can do for you, and have proof statements, have examples, have a way of describing that the salesperson can say it without ending with, and believe me, I will make sure it happens, which is what the founder says.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
One way or another, and he'll say it a lot of different ways, right? Steve, you probably say it differently than the way I just said it, right? Yeah. But somehow you have to be able to impart on them that, trust me, this product will work, right?
Yeah.
And when you say it with the wealth of experience of the CEO of the company. And when Drew says it, Drew says it with facts and stories and case studies and examples. And because he can't say, trust me, it will work.
Yeah.
He can say it, but he has no validity in saying it.
Yeah.
Right. You have to say it other ways. And
that's so good.
yeah.
Yeah.
And when I know I've made joint sales calls with you, Drew, when I'm talking about Alteza, and I usually say, look, did you like Drew as a salesperson? And they almost always say yes, because Drew is really good in a sales situation. I go, well, the reason why you should hire Alteza is because everybody is just as good as Drew. And that's pretty much the end of the conversation at that point when I say that, because I know at that point that they're going to go, oh, well, if they're all as good as Drew, and I really like Drew because I actually wanted to hire Drew rather than hire Alteza, then I'm good. I'm perfectly good. And I have Sean with all this gray hair that is going to help me put together the processes and to make it all work. And I got a salesperson that is just as good as Drew to make me successful.
Yeah. That's really good, man. Love that. And Drew, receive that, man. That's awesome, right?
It's hard to receive as a salesperson. You try to deflect as much as you can, but you know what? You take it where you can find it. So I appreciate that.
That's because salespeople, like it's always, we're one day away from our next, loss, right? And so, humility is right around the corner for salespeople all the time.
That's exactly right.
So Sean, one of the I want to transition our conversation back to AI because we kind of teased that out at the beginning, but I just want to point out something that a real key principle in what you were talking about there is how the founder themselves actually needs to sit in that sales seat for a while in order to learn all the things that you were talking about. So I think one of the other mistakes that a founder can sometimes make is like right at the beginning of the business before they've really validated that the market cares and will actually accept what they're selling. They immediately kind of they go, I hate sales. I'm bringing in a salesperson. Let them figure it out. And I really think there's so much value in the founder living in that sales seat for a while before they bring in that first salesperson.
Absolutely. It's like, and I think most founders did it. Now, founders are lucky when they are salespeople before. So I said it earlier. I said, you grew a company to $10 million. So let's think about what it takes to be a founder and to grow a company at $10 million. You had to figure out supply chain. You had to figure out accounts receivable and accounts payable. You had to figure out how to make your product, whatever that was, whether it was develop it as a software product, whether it was develop it as a services product, whether it was develop it as a manufactured product, right? So if it was a manufactured product, man, you really got to know stuff. You got to be able to buy raw materials and manufacture raw materials and all the rest. So, most people cannot pull that off. And so I usually end up saying, look, you did everything great. Most people can't do it. And by the way, sales is the hardest thing to do. And most people think that sales is easy, but sales is the hardest job to have.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And I think some of you have heard me say this, and now everybody on your podcast listening audience is going to hear it. So most salespeople don't make their quota in any given year, right?
Mm-hmm.
In fact, depending on the market, depending on the analysts you talk to, it's anywhere from 40% of the salespeople make their quota to 80%. Nobody goes above 80%, right? Nobody says more than 80% of their salespeople make their quota. Let's talk about what quota is. What Steve, the owner of the company, tells Drew, you need to do this much money, right? This is what my expectation is of you. That's quota, right? It could be unfair. It could be fair. I'm not going to argue that point. But if it's whatever, it was the expectation of management of what you should do. So if 80% of the salespeople make their number, that means 20% didn't. And some analysts will tell you that it's 50-50 or 40% didn't make their number, right? So let's do that a little bit reverse. Let's do some examples. You're getting on a plane. You're going to fly down to the Caribbean islands to have a vacation. The pilot says, I'm as good as a salesperson. 80% of the time I can land the plane. Would you feel good about that? No. You get into an Uber after having dinner with your spouse for your anniversary. 80% of the time I don't wreck the car.
That's so good, Sean.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
yes.
You need your appendix out. 80% of the time I don't take out your liver, right? So most people don't fail as much as salespeople fail. We have the toughest profession that there is. Salespeople fail all the time.
That's
It's part
right.
of our job.
It is, yeah. It's just like, I mean, and you're just talking about quota. When you talk about like conversion, right? Sales conversion, that ratio is down a little
Smaller.
more like 300, right? You're batting
exactly.
300, 30%. So, yeah, 70% of the time we're losing.
We're losing.
So
We
yeah,
lose
we're
all the
used to
time.
that. You
Yeah.
have to be able to be very comfortable with rejection as a salesperson.
Right.
So let's talk about AI, man. Tell us what you're seeing. I know this could be like a whole episode, but in terms of like just kind of crystallizing some of the big things you're seeing with sales and AI, I'd love to hear your wisdom.
So here's what I end every podcast. So Drew, you said that you just listened to my first podcast. Thank you very much. I end every podcast with kind of a message kind of like this. AI is not going to replace salespeople, but AI will replace the people who don't use AI. So the reality is, and I was talking to Drew earlier this week about this very issue. So my father, when he was making sales, and Drew's going to know this story because I just told him the story, but when my father, who sold heavy construction equipment, long before there was computers, right? So I'm talking about 1960s, 1970s, heavy construction equipment. He made 25 sales calls a week, 5 a day. That was his quota. I remember seeing him come home at night as he's having his first beer while my mom was making dinner, and he was writing out on a pad of paper, these are the people that I saw, this is what we talked about, right? So he had a pad of paper, and there were 5 spaces on that pad of paper, and he better have filled all that pad of paper up. 5 separate sections on that form. He had to fill it out. 25 a week, right? 5 a day, 25 a week. When I started my sales career, I was at 3 sales calls a day. That was my quota. That was the expected capability. Ken Houck, the guy I was talking about at the very beginning of this episode, 3 sales calls a day. Now, you're lucky to get 1 sales call a day from a salesperson. 1 sales call a day, right? Our productivity is incredibly bad. And we did this really bad thing to salespeople is we gave them laptops. We gave them computers. And we said, you don't get a secretary, and we used to call them secretaries, now they call them admins, right? So that's a little bit different of a world, right? You don't get a secretary anymore. You don't get a group of secretaries anymore. So when I started, we had 4 admins, secretaries in my office, 4, right? And so they would be doing my work for me, and I would be out making sales calls. I'd come back, I'd throw stuff on their desk and say, you do this, you do this, you do this. And they did all the work. Salespeople, like, we type into the computer. We have to know how to type, right? I mean, my dad didn't know how to type. Did your dad? I don't, right? So, right?
No,
so
my mom did.
Today, now, for the first time in most of our careers, I could turn on 20 robots to do all of that clerical work for you, right? 20 robots. I can have somebody update your CRM. You get a business card from somebody that you just met, you know, I can just, before you would type that into your CRM system, whatever that was, right? Whether it was Excel or a true CRM system.
Yep.
Now, I can give that business card to my robot, and my robot will go ahead and take care of that problem for me. They'll update my CRM for me. In fact, my robot will then say, hey, Sean, I see that there are 43 other people at this company. Would you like me to do the other people in that same department into your CRM? You want me to go get that information from some other source, find all the other people that are in that company, and bring them into your CRM? Like, I can't do that, not easily, not quickly, but my robot can. And then I can have a robot that's like, hey, Sean, I see that you updated the CRM about something that happened. Would you like me to tell everybody else that in your database about that information? Hey, Sean, you just got an email from somebody. Would you like me to respond to that for you? But here's my suggested response to that email for you, right? Today, that is possible, right? So AI is revolutionizing sales.
Yep.
Right? There is no question about it. And the faster we get good at AI as salespeople, the more productive we will be, because productivity, hours in the day, 40 hours a week, 168 hours in a month, in a week, that if we don't sleep and we don't do anything else. Well, you know what? If I can have somebody else working 168 hours a week, that's awesome. If I can have 20 robots working 168 hours a week, that's awesome. That way I can maybe work 30 hours a week, and I can make my kids game in the afternoon.
Yeah.
That's
Right?
good.
Love that, man.
That's
And
good.
so you did such a brilliant job of talking about use cases, AI use cases that you are like, these are the ones you want to do, right?
Yeah.
Whether you're founder-led sales or just salespeople working in an organization, like those use cases are amazing examples of the right way to use it. What's one use case that you wish people would stop doing?
So the one that you should never do is forget that human needs to be in the loop. So it's called human in the loop. If you Google it, you'll hear this term a lot of people that talk about it. Human in the loop. You want the robot to do the rough draft. Your robot today is an intern, right?
That's
But
good.
even when I had an admin back in my first job, I always looked at what they wrote, right? I would dictate this is what I want to tell Joe at he can or whatever, right? And they would type it up, and then they would go, hey, Sean, is this good enough? Is this what you want to say? Did I capture your words correctly? Because it's just fact of life, they had to do some interpretation on what we said. So if you are just sending stuff out that the robot writes, well, that's not you. And if your job, let's tie it all back together, if your job is about trust, then why in the world would you delegate trust to the robot, right? So don't do that, right? Have them write the rough copy, right? They should do the first draft, right? They are an intern, right? They are simply an intern. So bring the intern in, let the intern write the rough draft, let them do the first PowerPoint slides, right? They should create the set of PowerPoint slides and then do what I call the 60-second review. 60 seconds on every slide. Is this the right message? Yeah, that's good. That looked good. Nope, that one didn't work. Fix that one. Here's the next one. That one's great. That one's great. 15 slide deck. There's 4 that have to be fixed. Send those back to the robot. Let the robot fix those, right? They're not on target. They don't say the right things. I don't need to do it. I don't need to be the artisan anymore. So we used to have everybody not long ago, like 2 years ago or today, the salesperson has to be the artisan. I have to create it. I have to create this beautiful deck. I have to create this beautiful presentation. I have to explain to this customer in a great way how great our product is. No, you really don't. All you have to be is editor-in-chief. Editor-in-chief means I look at what came out of the robot and I fixed it and I made it mine. I make sure that it conveys the message. So don't send the robot stuff out. Have it come to you, read it, fix it, make it better, and use that.
Human in the loop.
That's good.
Human in the loop.
Human in the loop.
Yep.
That's good. Well, Sean, you've been so generous with your time, and obviously, we really appreciate you. So where can people find you? How can they connect with you? How can they learn more about New Sales Expert or your podcast, Two Tall Guys Talking Sales? Or hear more about your insights on sales and AI, because I know that's a thing that you've been doing more and more. So,
right. Thank you for that, Craig. I really do appreciate it. So I am, as the three of you know, I am very active on LinkedIn. So you can, if you find me, Sean O'Shaughnessy, you got to figure out how to spell my name. That's hard. But Sean O'Shaughnessy on LinkedIn, I put stuff out all the time. I connect with everybody. In fact, if you ask me to connect, especially if you're in the U.S., I'm probably going to accept your connection. Now, if you're a beautiful woman for Korea, no, I'm not going to connect with you because I know that that's tough, right? But if you're somewhere in the United States, if you're trying to do some value stuff, if you have sales in your title, I'm probably going to connect with you. Happy to do that. You can read my stuff. I put out 3 to 7 posts a week on LinkedIn. So I'm always on LinkedIn, so you can find me. I have 2 podcasts. One of them I do, it's called Two Tall Guys Talking Sales. Steve has been a guest on that episode before. In fact, he is our most frequent repeat guest, still is. So that was a
Nice.
thing that we talked about the last time. So Steve has been on 4 or 5 episodes of Two Tall Guys Talking Sales. So Two Tall Guys Talking Sales. The other tall guy is a good friend of mine, Kevin Niblock. He's actually a competitor of mine. He's another fractional VP of sales, but we like each other. We're friendly. And we figure that, the boat rises, all boats rise with the rising tide, right? So Two Tall Guys Talking Sales. It's on everywhere. We're at episode 180, something like that. So you can definitely find me there. And then my latest one, I'm at episode 30 so, AI Tools for Sales Pros. AI Tools for Sales Pros is just me talking into this microphone, saying stuff about AI, and I try to explain it in the first couple episodes, the first 10, very, very technical. but that was just so you could go back and listen to what is a large language model, right? An LLM,
Yeah.
right? So go listen to that episode. It's like episode 4. But now I'm into talking about how do salespeople really use tools to be successful? And how do I have 20 robots working for me to solve problems? So you can get it. All the podcast players have AI tools for sales pros.
Love that. I love it, Sean. Well, and we end every episode with a toast. King Snake, you are up this week and every week in our hearts, right?
And now this one's an easy one, guys. All right, glasses up. So here is to fixing the system before buying more tools and remembering that trust still closes deals at tech. To Sean O'Shaughnessy for the reminder that AI can help us, but trust is what sells. So cheers to trust and sales and to relationships that will go on forever. Here's to you guys.
Cheers. Drink to that, man.
I love
Thank
it.
you very much. That was a great toast. You took notes. That was awesome.
Yeah, that was excellent. That was excellent, King Snake.
Mr. King Snake will,
Mr. King Snake.
he'll surprise you.
Well, guys, that is
All three of you guys are some of the nicest people I know, and I'm just going to make a plug for Alteza out there for everybody's listening. You really need to talk to the three of these people: Craig, Mr. King Snake, Drew, and Steve. They are great people. They're honest people. Some of the nicest and most honest and most forthright people that I know. And if you are looking to grow your sales organization, give Drew a call. And Craig will take care of you, and Steve will make sure that they all do their job. So reach out to them and have a conversation.
That's good. That's good.
Thanks,
Well, that is
Sean.
a wrap on this episode of Whiskey is for Closers. Huge thank you to Sean O'Shaughnessy for hanging out, sipping some bourbon, and explaining why your real problem is probably not just we need a tool to fix that. It's your sales management, your process, it's the tools, it's everything is still living like you're in 2009. And if you heard yourself in any of the stories that Sean was sharing, especially the horror stories, congratulations, because awareness is the first step. The second step is doing literally anything about it. Go check out newsales.expert. Go clean up your sales process. Maybe stop letting your reps use AI to write 47-paragraph cold emails without checking them. And if this episode hit a nerve, subscribe so you won't miss the next one. Send it to that founder friend who keeps buying more tools instead of fixing their pipeline. You know exactly who I'm talking about. Thanks for listening. Thanks for sipping. And remember, whiskey is for closers. AI is just there to make you look smarter. We will catch you on the next pour. Cheers.
Cheers, man.
Cheers.
Thank you, Sean.
Thank you.